Beginning at verse 1, here you'll find the reading in Judges chapter 7, verse 1. If you're reading in the King James Version Bible, please join me in reading in concert. All other versions, please follow along. 1, 2, ready? Let's read. Then Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Harod, so that the host of the Midianites were on the north side of them by the hill of Morah in the valley. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people that are with thee are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, mine own hand hath saved me. Now therefore go to proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whosoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from Mount Gilead. And there returned of the people 22,000, and there remained. So you got 32,000, and he says, everybody that's afraid to go further and go up against our enemy, go back. How many left? Now, when I just read it, it said 22, not how many were left. I said how many left, like went back. Oh, yeah, okay, so we're in the same Bible. 22,000 left without ever seeing the enemy. Left out of fear and anxiety, 10,000 were left. Let's read verse 4. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people are still. Bring them down to the water. I'm going to test them there, and it shall be that of whom I say, Lord have mercy. Now wait, because I can't run past that, because the longer I let you read, the louder the Holy Spirit gets. Last week we started out talking about being chosen. In this chapter, what is so important for you to understand, Gideon had a plan that included 32,000. But of those 32,000, first of all, 22,000 of them we already know God was saying they're not to go with you. Now take these 10,000 that are left, and I'm going to test them, and I will decide who will go from this point on. Now, why is that important? Because as you navigate through the rest of 2018, you've got to stop making choices that were never yours to make and begin to agree with the choices that God has made, because God knows who needs to go further, who needs to return, and who needs to remain. I'm not all that bright. I know you're real deep. I know you're real oily. I can see it. Your head is glistening now. But for me, at the end of the day, sometimes I have chosen people who have did more damage because of my perception of that individual or my perception of that skill set. He says, but at this juncture, at this season of your life, there are certain seasons, and please hear me when I say this to you, there are certain seasons that only certain people can go with you in. And the people that are left and the people that have to go back and the people that have to remain are not always ungodly, are not always evil. They are just not chosen to help you to do what you got to do. And I know that sounds repetitive, but it's repetitive because most of us haven't got that yet. Because you're trying to carry people into a season of your life that God has said, no, not them. Everybody that starts won't finish. Everybody that comes in the middle won't finish. And so we've got to be able to know who God is giving the green light to. Okay, ask somebody, do you know who's gotten the green light? All right, let's go back. Where were we at? What verse did we pick up on? What verse we stop at? I'm sorry for interrupting y'all. What verse we was on, BB? Let's just go to verse 5. Go to verse 5. Pick it up at verse 5. Read through verse 8. 1, 2, ready, read. He brought down the people. And the Lord said, set them to the side. Likewise, come on. Okay, out of all that was left, how many was left? No. Back up, 10,000. Out of 10,000, only 300 were able to do what was necessary for this fight against the Midianites without even having to have instructions. But it was instinct, internal, already deposited, so they were able to pull from them what had already been deposited. While everybody else responded to the situation like they normally would. Because remember last week, we talked to you about at this season in Gideon's life, God is having him to ultimately produce in an unlikely way. He was threshing wheat with the wine press. Wine press was for wine. Threshing floor was for the wheat. But God was taking the unusual to get things done. And even here in chapter 7, he is again saying, I'm not looking for people who always respond the normal way, who always only do what the normal calls for. I need people who at the end of the day have an instinct, have a skill set, have the grace for, have the oil for what I need to happen right now. Right now, we're about to go up against the Midianites. Right now, we're about to go up against a formidable enemy. And I need to have the right people. And it's not always in the numbers. Because you started with 32,000. But when I look at who's really ready for this, thank you, Holy Spirit. They weren't evil. They wasn't rebellious. They just wasn't ready. Y'all missing this because you're tired of standing. You better get this. The people that were left, that God told them to move to the side, they weren't rebellious. They wasn't telling Gideon, talking about we ain't going nowhere. They just. So be careful how you label everybody. Be careful what you tag to everybody. Because some people that you've got to leave behind is not a bad thing. They're just not. And because of the requirements of this fight, because of what will be necessary to be victorious with this particular enemy, because this particular enemy is going to be that kind of enemy that ultimately is almost like a thorn in the side of Israel. And if they're going to defeat them at this place, it requires a certain skill set. So I cannot take people who will have to be fighting for the people they should be fighting with. Okay. I cannot afford for you to be having to exert energy, time, and resources trying to help people who shouldn't have been in the fight in the first place. Because for the enemy of the Midianites, it's going to require all you got. So you got to make sure that you're not trying to bring people who are just not ready. Be seated, I'm preaching already. Bible says, of those who were left after this last test, from 32,000, 22,000 got chopped off the first time because they were afraid. 10,000 remains. 9,700 now get cut off because they didn't have the necessary skill set required for this particular fight. In doing my study, I don't see where they were kicked out of the army. All I see is that they were not able to go in for this fight. Their behavior is what revealed their skill set. See, sometimes all you have to do is look at the fruit. The fruit of the life defines what type of life it is. Okay, turn the fans on low so they can hear me when I'm talking. Yeah, turn the fans on low. Turn that on low. Yeah, it's comfortable. It's comfortable. Yeah. The life is defined by the fruit it produces. The behavior defines the believer. I am defined by my behavior, not my title. Hey, I can be a husband by title, but not by behavior. Because there's a certain behavior that a husband demonstrates when he's a husband after the word of God, a father, a pastor, and a believer. So it was the behavior of the soldiers that now will define who stays and who goes. And of those who lacked bringing the water to them, versus those who lapped like a... Because to lap like a dog, ultimately, there's a period by which I lose sight of versus if I bring the water to me, I'm always conscious of what's going on around. Y'all ain't saying nothing. Your posture and your position in this season of your life matters, because some of you are lapping like this when he wants you to hold your head up and lap like. Because you can't afford. One bad decision can set you back 6 months. I wish I was in the right church this morning. I'm telling you, one bad move. Okay? One bad outfit bought at the wrong time can set you back 4 paychecks. I wish the honest church had showed up. One bad... Never mind. So those who brought the water to their mouths without lapping like a dog were the ones that were to be taken, and those who will go into battle, and those who will obtain victory. Oh God, okay, I hear you. Tell them this. 300 got victory for 32,000. See, and this is why, I hear you, God. This is why I don't need to compete with you. You go ahead. If you got the oil on you for this, if you're the gifted one for this one, if you're the one that got the skill set for this one, go on. I'm going to be here. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to intercede, because I know that I will be impacted by what you do, because you're going in representation of all of us. Though you are fighting, you're not just fighting for you. 300 going against the Midianites will bring victory to 32,000. Many of you are fighting selfish battles. And selfish battles are never godly battles. And it is only godly battles that bring you into godly fulfillment and godly victories. Those that were chosen got to proceed and win the victory on behalf of the entire nation. We still got an army of 32,000. Though only in this fight, we only needed and only 300 who knew what to do now. Now, maybe later on, Lewis, the other 300 would shift and change. But for right now, I need a certain skill set. Okay, let me get to my sermon. Grab your neighbor by the hand, because now I'm going to preach now. Okay, now I'm going to preach now. Grab your neighbor by the hand. Look your neighbor in the eye. Let's tag the text. Judges 7, 1 through 8, and we're going to preach about God's plan is always better. Come on, look at somebody on the other side like you know it is, and just tell them, neighbor, God's plan is always better. If you believe that, clap those hands like you really believe that this morning. God's plan is always better. God always knows what is best for us. How many of you are here this morning believe God's got a plan for your life? How many of you believe the word of God as he spoke it on last week that you've been chosen for such a time as this? How many of you in this room believe that you're only alive because God's got something that he is going to accomplish in your life that nobody other than you can get done? Raise your hand. Amen. Just as you raise your hand, I too believe that God has a plan for my life and God has a plan for your life, and those plans are specific and unique to that for which he has created and purposed. Everybody's got a different plan. I believe that God has a plan for anybody who will be willing to listen to the Creator so that they can accomplish what he manufactured or produced you for. Okay. Many of us raised our hands to say that God's got a plan for our lives, but many of the hands that are raised don't want to follow the manufacturer's instructions. Lord, this deep church. If you buy something from the store, the company that made it puts inside of it instructions to say that if you want to use the product that I've created, then you read the instructions, and the instructions will tell you how to get full use out of the object that you purchased, out of that you acquired, because it was in the mind of the creator and not the product. When did we shift to becoming creators and not creation? When did it shift that we created us, so now we can come up with the plan that best fit? Ain't nobody say, I wish y'all could see the expressions on y'all face, and it ain't the sleepy ones either. It's almost like you looking at me like, you gonna come for me like that this early? But look at somebody and tell them, he's just saying what God said. Because we're at the midway point of 2018, and one of the things that we've got to do is reassess. Reassessing to see what's working. Reassessing to see what I need to adjust, where I've gotten off track at, what I've accomplished, so I'll know, okay, I've finished this, now I need to do that. And at this point in your life, many of you are just like me. I just said to my wife while we were driving to the wedding on yesterday, she was like, you know, what's wrong with you? And I was saying, honey, what you don't understand is that I'm just feeling some kind of way, is how I described it. Because I'm at June. And I'm feeling some kind of way. You ain't getting all my business this morning. Don't even. Now you want to look up here like, you feeling some kind of. Yeah, I'm feeling some kind of way. And the challenge of it is because now that you've come into understanding who you are, whose you are, now you want to rewrite your instructions. Glory to God. Okay. Okay, I say that. All Holy Ghost filled iPhone users, raise your iPhone up in this house. We're going to come against this Android spirit in Jesus' name. In Jesus' holy and righteous name. Raise them up high. Raise them up high. Don't be ashamed of your testimony this morning. We know God. We know God. We know God. Come on, shake them for Jesus. Shake them for Jesus. Come on. Deliver them, Lord. Deliver them, Lord. Shabba-ba-ba-ba. Deliver them. Lift your iPhone up. Lift your iPhone up. All right. Y'all hear the murmurings of the Android crowd? Just stay focused. Just stay focused. When you first got your iPhone, whichever version you have, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 10, you got instructions of how to work it at the time. Now, The longer you had it, the more comfortable you became with it, to a degree where some of you have tried to do some things with your phone that you can't do. You've tried to do stuff with the iPhone that was intended for unbelieving Android users. It's just a joke. Don't email me, don't text me, don't write me letters. It's just a joke. Help the people stay woke, okay? Okay. Number one, it didn't work because it wasn't compatible for your... You were trying to take Android instructions, making them applicable for something that was too high-tech for an Android to even comprehend. Do you hear what I'm saying to you up in here? You couldn't change the instructions in the middle after you had it for 6 months. But what you could do is go into your settings to find out, are there any updates? And your updates will help you to do later what you couldn't do in the beginning. Okay? Many of you are like your iPhone. And the problem is, you got the instructions in January. You've been working the instructions since January, but since January, we've had 3 or 4 updates. Your phone alerts you to tell you that there's an update to your software. A little red thing comes up, a notification. Everybody say, you've been notified. This old dead church ain't gonna say nothing, but I'm gonna preach it. You've been notified, but though you've been notified, it's up to you whether or not you read your notification. And your notification will instruct you that there's an update available for your phone so that your phone could do the next thing. And you will not be able to do the next thing without having the update in now. Many of you are trying to live your lives by changing instructions midways the process. But the update never comes from the user. The update always comes from the manufacturer. I need a catcher up here because I'm about to slay myself in the Holy Ghost. Updates come from the designer. Updates come from the creator. Okay, so my question is Android or Apple? Because if you don't have an Apple phone, God bless you, maybe you got a computer, a laptop, a Surface Pro, and every type of equipment that is technologically driven at some point or another either has to be updated or replaced. Some of you are trying to work with an IBM that is from the 70s. And trying to figure out why is it so hard? Because what you are using is not compatible for where you are. You got to update. Okay, I need about 10 people who are ready and radical to get out from your seat and your immediate area and find at least one person and just holler loud as you can and tell them, I'm ready to update. Go. Go, go. No, you got to start with following the instructions. I said get up and go out your area. One of the things God told me in the beginning of the year, beloved, go sit down now, go sit down now, go sit down. One of the things that God told me in the beginning of the year was to plan a mid-year vision board party. He reminded me earlier in the week. He reminded me this morning, and he said, you're in the middle of the year. Where's the vision board party? And some of you look like, what's so important about a vision board party? Because for some of you, you haven't looked at your vision board since you first glued that picture there. So for some of you, it's going to be a refreshing to put you back on course. See, there was a word that was dropped in our group chat and on our Facebook page that said reset. And that thing's been resonating in my spirit because so many of us need reset. And then what Holy Spirit brought to my attention was reset. Listen to me. Reset is not always going back to zero. Reset is sometimes going back to the point where you were on track at, where you got off at, and pick up from that. See, a lot of times, those of you that are resetting, you reset by going all the way back to zero. You don't need to always go back to zero in everything. Some things, you need to just pick up where you messed up at. And so he said, have a mid-year, because for some of you, it's going to be a refresher. It's going to remind you of what I told you. For some of you, it's going to be an adjustment. Because as you assess your board and look at what you said you were going to accomplish, you'll be able to assess, what have I done? What haven't I done? And over the course of this 6 months, what have I learned that I need to do that's not on here? And then make the adjustments. And see, that's why we're so quiet. Because we make boards from January to January. We make a board January of 2018. We're going to make one January 2019. We're going to make one January 2020. And in most instances, them boards going to be the same old thing. God told me. My question is, at what point will you accomplish? If not the whole board, something on the board ought to be accomplished by. Ain't nobody saying nothing. I know it's early and I know it's an up-in-your-face sermon, but I got to do it because he gave it to me. I've got to wake you to this, because if 2018 is going to be a season of elevation, that suggests you're going to have to accomplish something. You can't go to the next leaving undone here. And so, if you believe God's got a plan for your life, then it's important that you stay in tune with the manufacturer about the product that it created. So that if complications come, if parts need to be reordered, Lord, some of y'all so deep, you don't never have to get no parts reordered. Some of y'all so anointed and oily and Holy Ghost filled, and there's nothing ever wrong with you. You just always right with Jesus. But I believe there's some people in this crowd like me who love the fact that David wrote in the Psalm, he had to tell the Lord, Lord, create within me a clean heart. That's like saying, I need a new part. I done burnt the other one up. I done messed up. I've used it for something it wasn't created for, and as a result, it's burnt out. So I'm going back to the manufacturer and asking the manufacturer, Lord, do it all over. Some of you are at the midway point of 2018 rather, and you need to tell the Lord, Lord, I need you to do it again. And so, believing that God has a plan for your life, it's important that if you're going to stay on track, you stay connected to the manufacturer, okay? These next 6 months are going to be important, Rhema. These next 6 months, beloved, those of you that are watching by streaming, it's going to be important. I got to say this because he made me put it in bold letters and underline it. Any deviation from the plan of God will lead to disaster. In these next 6 months, any deviation from God's plan for your life will lead to disaster. And I don't know about anybody else, but I don't need no more dark clouds overshadowing what I'm trying to get done. Okay. I know I'm not here for everybody. I know. But in these last 6 months, I don't have time for self-inflicted wounds. Because the very fact my obedience to God comes with its own hiccups, I don't need to add more. So any deviation from God's plan in these next 6 months can lead to disaster. He says, tell the people, choose your directions well. James 4, write this down and read it when you get home. Won't be able to finish all of this. We'll tag it and get through it next week. James 4, 13 through 17. Read it when you get home. It's in these verses that James is counseling men against the foolishness of making plans without the consideration for the will of God. I am amazed, sometimes flabbergasted, at how many of us want the promises of God to come to pass, but don't know what the plan is to get the promise. Okay. Come here. Oh, Jesus. Right here. Look at them. This is Courtney. Courtney has on his all black today. Courtney has on a tie, believe it or not, today. It is all black. Perfectly tied with the dent in the middle. Right? He didn't wake up like this. None of this looked like this when he got up. He had to do a certain thing to get this look. Now, it's impossible for him to do what I do and look like. It's impossible for him to do what I do and look this sexy. Because there's a certain thing that's required to accomplish this look that's different from this look. See, this look, I spend time in the mirror. This look, you don't have to. No, hear me out. No hair up here. He don't have to comb his hair. Courtney can wipe his face and prepare his head with all one stroke. Whoosh. If I do that, you gonna look like, did Lady Ira chase him out the house this morning? Because what's required for his preparation to look like this is different than what's required. I'm trying to get you to see something. See, a lot of times we want to look like this, but don't want to do what this requires. And I've got permission to talk like this because it's Courtney. And Courtney will tell. Courtney, at one point, what was your heaviest weight?
338.
338. Many of you that just met Courtney the last few years would have never known that. Because when you look at Courtney now, he doesn't look like the Courtney back in the 80s and the 90s. You weren't born in this, 80s and 90s. But in order to look like this, how many days a week would you say the gym was part of it?
At least 5.
How many days of the week does it require a particular type of menu?
6.
How many days did you have to pass up food that you liked, but if you ate it, it would have took you off track?
6.
But because of the willingness to be disciplined, the Courtney you see now is not the Courtney you knew in the 80s. Because he followed the path and the principles. So now he can look like the pastor. He's just a dark version, I'm the light version. Many of us want God's blessings, want God's promises, but don't want to do what God say. Okay, that didn't work because y'all just gonna make me work, so I'm gonna work. You got a job? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. You got a job? Raise your hand. And how many of you are the CEO of your job? Raise your hand. If you're the CEO, raise your hand. Okay? How many of you are the CFO, Chief Financial Officer of your company? Okay? How many of you are the COO, Chief Operating Officer of your company? All right? How many of you are, Mitch, what's the other title for the logistical person in charge? CFO or CLO or one of them O's, you the operator. Most of you are working for somebody. And the somebody tells you what to do, how to do it, how many hours you're going to do it, when to break from doing what you got to do, how long to break, and then how much they're going to pay you for doing what you do. And every day you go in there and you do what they tell you because you want what they give you. I ain't getting no help in here, and I'm going on a platform, and you want that check. You so thirsty for that check because I got to pay bills. So whatever the requirement is, whether it is quota, whether it is calling, whether it is outreaching, whether it is landscape, whatever it is, you do what is necessary so you can get your check. So how is it that we show up before the Lord wanting a check for work we haven't put in? Ain't nobody going, yeah, preach, Pastor. So James says in 4:13 through 17 is that I can make any plan I wish. But until I recognize and realize that God always has the final say in my life because he is the manufacturer and the creator of my life, then I'm better off bringing myself before the Lord and asking him, what are your plans? And how do I accomplish what your plans are? Sisters and brothers, all of us, our human nature, want things to go well for us. All of us, when we think about our plans, most times when we think about our plans, we stack the deck. So I'm lying and you the truth? Most times when you plan for your life, you plan with your favor working for you. You stack the deck in the sense of making sure that everything is put where it needs to be put so you can have the desired result. But sometimes how you stack the deck is different from how God stacks the deck. Sometimes your plans, my plans, are different from God's plans. Since y'all wouldn't say nothing, Luke 5:4-8 says that when Peter thought that he would be fishing and catch fish at night, which was the popular time to go fishing, they had been there all night long, only to find out they didn't catch nothing. Jesus shows up at the morning, tells them to go catch fish now. Go out into the deep, throw your nets out. And now it's not the proper time for fishing. Nevertheless, because it was Jesus, they did it, only to discover his plan worked better. Not only did Peter find out that God's plan worked better, Jesus told his disciples when he was getting ready to die that he was getting ready to pay the price for their sins. And Peter rebuked them. Only to find out that after Jesus had rose from the dead, went back to the Father, sitting at the right hand of the Father, making intercession for us, that Jesus had the better plan. When Goliath saw David coming, he thought that he was going to break him in two and then feed his body to the carcasses. Only to find out when David let that stone go and that stone hit him in the forehead, God got a better plan. Oh, sisters and brothers, when Moses sent 12 spies into the land of Canaan to see what the land looked like, at the end of the day, 10 of those spies thought they too big for us. 2 of those spies say they just the right size. We are well able. Why? Because God had another plan. And God's plan is always the best plan. Can I get somebody to high five a neighbor and tell them God's plan is always the best plan? And the truth of that is fleshed out in our text this morning. Gideon's story. Last week we talked about him being chosen. God called him something that he had not yet manifested. He was hiding and working. And God called him a mighty man. Mighty men didn't hide. Mighty men were always out front ready to fight. So God was calling him something that he had not yet. Stop letting people lock you into what you are when God is always saying, I'm calling you who you are here, and you keep responding to what people are calling you are. And it will be difficult for you to migrate into who you are when you keep responding into what they call you. Because oftentimes, people will only see what is manifested before them at that moment, but God always sees the end result. And sometimes my middle don't look like my end. And so now, Gideon is now where he's settled at being God's choice, where he's settled at understanding that God is going to give him the victory. And now God begins to reveal the plan of how it's going to get done. But God's plan, number one, is often different. That's the first point to write down. Because the realities of God's plan, Miss Jenny, is how he gets victory most of the time is different than how I get it. Verses 2 through 7, and we'll kind of play with this point and the next one maybe, and then we'll mark it there and pick it up next week. God's plan is Gideon had a plan, Lady B, that he was going to march in the battle with the Midianites with 32,000. Who wouldn't be confident? I got 32,000 getting ready to go in the war. We got this. 32,000 and God? Oh yeah, we got this hands down. But what do you do when God tells you the way you thought I was going to do it, or the way you thought you would acquire it, or the path you were heading down is not the path I want you to continue to pursue? You got too many. So here's how we're going to strip them down. Tell the first group, if you're scared, go back. And I want you to understand, people of God, this text is talking to you for where you are. Because there's some people you're trying to take with you. What God is telling you to do is too big. It's too scary, and it's too different for some of the people you're trying to bring into it. And if you bring them into it, it's going to be a disaster. Have you ever waited for somebody, and after getting there and hooking up, you regretted the wait? Where you said, you wasn't even worth, I don't even know why. Okay, this is not the right, okay, yeah. He says, if they're scared, they got anxiety, just tell them to go back. 22,000 left. But check this out. 22,000 was going to go if he hadn't said nothing. 22,000 chickens was going to go in the war if Gideon had not said, if you scared, go back. Do you know how that would have messed them up? I'm thinking I got 32,000 and 22,000 of y'all cowards. See, when I get in the trenches, I need people in the trench with me that's going to throw down. I don't need folks that's going to be second guessing. I don't need folks that's going to be intimidated. I need to know if I'm in a trench with somebody, you're going to be my ride or die. I ain't got time for people at this stage in my life who are too afraid of taking big steps. And so 32,000 people was part of his plan. But God told him, your plan is not my plan. Because my ways are higher, Lord have mercy, than your ways. The way that you think you need to do a thing, the way that you think that you need to accomplish a thing is different from how I want to accomplish it. Because see, when it gets done, I want you to know who did it. When you cross the finish line, when you obtain victory, I want you to be able to recognize it wasn't your hand, it wasn't your 32,000, but I want you to know, had it not been for the Lord. And I believe I'm in the house this morning where about 50 of you could testify that where you are, even at June of 2018, had it not been for. Sisters and brothers, don't be surprised to discover that God's plan may be different than yours. Don't be afraid to make changes. Okay, honey, permission to talk about our business? You know, I got you. I'm going to rest it on this point, and then we'll go and get ready for the 12 o'clock service. Hey, all you members of Rhema that missed morning service, meet me on Cortland at 12 o'clock at Pastor Wright and Abundant Life. I think it's 3518 Cortland. We're going over there to celebrate 4 years. Okay, now, on certain Sundays, Deacon Lewis, now, anybody know me, I'm an early riser, so I leave home very early in the morning. When I leave home, my family is still asleep. Even the dogs sleep when I leave home. And so when we get home at the end of the Sunday and get home for the day, some days I go in the house, and when I get up to my room, I'm trying to figure out, did we get robbed? Did somebody come up here and ramshack the closet? Because clothes, was that you hissing? Was that too much? Oh, that wasn't her. All right. I'm a happy wife, happy life. Clothes be over here. And I'm like, nah, she ain't wearing none of this. But clothes all over the bed. Because when we went to bed, we'll talk about, okay, well, what color you wearing? Well, I'm going to wear this color. Okay. And in her head, she got an outfit that, okay, I can wear that with that. And for me, I'm going to wear black. So I can get up in the morning, put on my black suit, it's fine. Huh? The outfit she had in her head, get in the mirror, change the outfit. But because she's limited in time, she ain't trying to hang it up. Poof, throw it on the bed. Put on a new outfit. It's black, but nah. And I know my wife ain't the only one here, so all you deep people will deal with lying demons right after this is over. Because if I go to your house before you get there today, it's about 6 outfits on your bed that didn't fit the way you thought. They didn't fit the way it fit last time when you wore it. Look at somebody and tell them, something happened, something happened. So, rather than wear something inappropriate or something that made her uncomfortable, she changed. Why do we keep trying to force circles and squares, rectangles and triangles, and then be uncomfortable, and now blame God, blame the people, blame the preacher, blame the prophet, blame the economy, blame the president, when at the end of the day, it's your fault? You ain't got nobody to blame that you look like you look. No, that's not in a bad way. No, please. No, not in a derogatory way. You got to take ownership. You got to take responsibility. I am where I am because of my own. Ain't nobody made me do nothing. Sometimes you got to be comfortable with change. I'd rather be changing and being in the will of God than to be pretty and disconnected. I'm beautiful, but I'm bound for hell. I'm skilled, but I'm unfulfilled. I'm oily, but no opportunity. Sometimes you got to look at that thing and say, now I thought this, because, okay, yep, close it up so I'll shut up. Watch this. Let me be transparent and deliver the whole house. There are times now, 23 years later, 29 years later, that I think God said one thing and he actually said another. And I only thought he said what he said because what I thought he said appeased me. See, I told you, y'all wasn't going to tell the truth. It is possible to sometimes hear what you want to. It's possible to hear and then make it be what benefits. Okay, I'm closing with this illustration. Parents, you ever told your child to do something, they did something, and you trying to figure out now, how'd you get that out of what I said? I told you to do this, and they built that. And then they got an explanation. A long, lengthy explanation about how they came to that resolve. Only for you to say, that's not what I told you. And God's saying, just like you are with your child, that's how I am with you. That I told you one thing, and you interpret it to your own benefit. That's why Solomon says, in all of our ways, acknowledge, so he can bring direction. Here we are, the 6th month. One of the things that you need to do in this month of June is some reassessment. The current plan and the current path that you're pursuing, whose is it? Is it yours or is it God's? And when you give the honest truth to that question, make the adjustments. Because for most of us, we'll have to adjust and go back to God's plan. Why? Because God's plan is always best. We'll do part 2 next week. Get up out of your seat. Go find 3 people and tell them it's time for reassessment. It's time for reassessment. I want God's plan. I want God's purpose to be fulfilled in my life. I want God's will to be performed in my life. But sometimes God's plans are different than mine. I planned on being rich by now, married by now, 20 pounds lighter by now, and I'm 20 pounds heavier. Sometimes the question is not whether or not you know God's plan. The question becomes, are you obedient to God's plan?